Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Non-Expert Guide to African TV and Film. With me are my co-non-experts, Tolu.
Hi, guys. Let's talk African TV and cinema, good, bad, and the ugly.
Okay, Ibiyemi.
Hello, Ibiyemi here. Maybe talking a little bit about some uglies today. I'm joking. Oops.
Be nice.
I'm trying.
Okay, so for today, we are talking about the film Shine Your Eyes.
I'm looking for Ikenna Ibomeze.
The last time I saw your brother, he was walking away from my house. I can't understand why he just disappeared the way he did.
Radio Mano gara ezigbo ụra ka ọ sị na o nyere anyị obi ụtọ. Unu nweziri obi ụtọ nwa? Eji m gara ebe ka ihe niile biri.
A Nigerian musician travels to Brazil to search for his estranged brother who is living a life very different than the one his family thought. It's a film by a Brazilian filmmaker. 7 people are credited with writing this film. Matias Mariani, Julia Murat, Francine Barbosa, Chika Anadu, who wrote and directed B for Boy, Roberto Winter, Myra Bula, and Chioma Thompson. So that's very interesting. I read a little bit about the making of the film, and apparently this director is very collaborative. And so he feels like he doesn't mind sharing with everybody else, you know. Many directors are usually very protective, but he's like, come on.
The more the merrier.
I know, exactly. The film stars OC Ukeje, Paolo Andre Barry Iguje, Chukwudi Iwuji, and Indira Nascimento. I hope I have done all those names justice. All right, so let's get into it. First thoughts, initial thoughts about this film.
I'll go.
Okay.
Tolu, shall I?
I didn't crack this time. Yes.
I know.
Right. So I think overall the movie made me feel quite uneasy. Partly because I wasn't really sure what was going on for most of the time. I wasn't sure if it was otherworldly or if it was dealing with maybe just some mainstream dodginess. So that's one thing. I think on the other hand as well, because most of the time they were conversing in a language that I didn't understand, either Portuguese or Igbo. It required a lot of attention as well, and it just kind of gave it that sort of creepy feeling, which still is just because it's unfamiliar. But it certainly had that effect on me, and I think I suspect that is part of what the director was going for. It wasn't going to be anything that was going to be easy to watch or easy to understand or easy for the senses to take in, I suppose. So for me, for in those respects, as a bit sort of, again, I don't know what word to use other than I think the resolution, if there was at the end, was also kind of a bit in the air for me, which maybe represents life a little bit. You don't always have like a clean answer to all your questions. So yes, so that's one. There was good music, brilliant visuals, but also it made me feel like a very sheltered, spoiled person, because I think whilst I've never been to Brazil, and I have seen some dodgy parts of the world, and I'm not saying Brazil is dodgy, by the way, for all Brazilians that might be watching, but it kind of gave me São Paulo, yeah, I think. But it was just kind of like, ooh, I don't want to be there feeling. So it felt slightly voyeuristic for me to, like, ooh, look at that, that's very dodgy. Ooh, I wouldn't want to be there. Ooh, how can they do? So yeah, I think it opened my eyes to something that is not my experience, and it's not the experience of people that I probably would know, at least as far as I'm aware. So from that respect, it was interesting to watch. So I enjoyed it for the most part.
Totally.
For me, it was I have two words for it. It was convoluted and it was confusing. In the end, I got what I think the director and the cast were going for. But I thought, I mean, they spent a lot of time sort of ruminating on a lot of things that I think were themes that are, I think, cross-cultural in nature, and I think that's what I feel that's what they were going for. But in the end, I think some of the messaging got lost in the. There was this almost sci-fi. I thought at one point, is this movie sci-fi? Is this a drama? What the heck is going on here? Like, really, what story are they trying to tell? In the end, I sort of think they got us to the finish line. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's my cup of tea, but I think it was a really good attempt at telling a different kind of story. So I enjoyed it in that aspect.
I agree. So recently we've done films that kind of tackle migration, right? We did Atlantis, we did The African Doctor, we did Adu. And I feel like this was that type of story as well, but done differently. Because, you know, which made it then not a straightforward just migration story, or it wasn't simple, Sha. It was confusing, like you said. And at first too, I was just like, what is this hologram stuff? And what are all these things, and horse gambling, and what is going on? But at the end, it just really it just made me think this is a story sometimes of Africans who kind of go abroad and lost. You know how we say it? They just see wherever, you know.
Abroad.
Yeah, abroad, and it was sad. So at the end, I felt sad. I felt this haunting. I felt sad for the family back home who, you know, all their hopes and dreams are probably put into this brother, you know. And like he says at the end, he's going to always be your firstborn, but he's never going to, I don't remember, he used a lie, I can't remember. But something about he's not going to do all these things for you that you guys thought he was going to, you know. I mean, to me, it looked like he'd had some kind of emotional breakdown. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah. And it was sad. It was very sad. But also for me, it was interesting how pressure, you're thousands of miles away from your family, right? And yet the pressure gets to you. And so it's that pressure combined with the pressure of being in a completely strange place where you don't speak the language, and how that really breaks people. And so I like that. Yeah, it was very confusing, but I liked how they did things differently. I was like, this is not a commercial film. This is not a film that people are gonna.
No,
you know,
this is definitely an art. This is definitely an art piece.
Yeah.
If we're diving deeper into the story, I mean, it's the storytelling. I think it was about two things. It was about first sons, and it was about migration. And so you have the first son, with the first son sort of mirroring the first son who chooses to stay with his father, who, you know, for all intents and purposes, alienated him from the original Hungarian culture, only then to lose being able to communicate with his son when he started descending into senility. So it was, I mean, there was that, and there was also this first son himself who loses it, unfortunately, and, you know, falls into a mental illness. Sorry, I'm losing my words today. But he, you know, he has either a schizophrenic episode or something that makes him sort of get wrapped up in numbers, and he has this sort of epiphany that thinks that he can travel in time and all of these things. But basically, he's lost. He has a mental illness, and he's in a situation where he can't cope with it. He's telling, I mean, he goes to Sao Paulo. He's telling this tale to his family of this house that he's living in, you know, this job that he has. He's a professor. He's all of this thing. Meanwhile, all he has is a few numbers that, you know, allows him to win or lose sometimes, and he's cracked under the pressure, I think they were trying to say. But I really felt that it was a really touching story about the pressure we put first kids under, firstborn sons, especially with the Igbo culture, and also the ramifications it has for the other siblings, the resentment of OC Ukeje's character, the motherly love that was poured all into this one person, and to the neglect of others. And it was really, I think it really tried to tell those stories well, and it really tried to mirror them both in the Nigerian / African culture and in the Hungarian family now transplanted into Brazil. Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil. I like that. So I don't think we're going to do our regular breakdown this time, because I feel like it's not your regular
single
film.
Character. Yeah, just a really singular character focus.
Yeah, and
having said that, I do think we should talk about. Okay, is that his name?
OC Ukeje.
OC Ukeje. He played. His character was Amadi.
Sorry, Amadi. Yeah. If we're going to talk about the individual characters or the acting, I thought he played it really well. I thought he was very convincing. He had that. He portrayed that sense of not responsibility, or that sense of duty, while all carrying a burden or a chip on his shoulder at the same time. I thought he conveyed that duality, which actually is very prevalent, but I thought he conveyed it with such conviction. So I have to do this, but I silently resent the fact that I'm doing it, or the person that I'm doing it for. But I also love him, and I'm desperate to find him. And then, of course, at the end, the disappointment and the shock and the reality that dawns on him, and the fact that he has to assume this position that he probably always wanted, but now he doesn't really want, because he's assumed it under circumstances that aren't ideal. So I think he played that beautifully. I certainly was very empathetic to his cause and to his plight. And I went on that journey with him, not having a lot in common with him at all, in the sense that nobody really expects me to do anything. Well, my family. Nobody really sends me on important errands at all. And whilst I love my siblings, I mean, I would do anything for them.
You would. If your sibling went missing, you would go look for them. Yes,
I would. But you never imagine yourself in that position, would you? You always think it will happen to somebody else. But now that I'm watching this happen to somebody else, and again, the sorts of situation they put themselves by, emigrating from Nigeria, migrating to a place where you don't really have strong ties, or you don't really have, which is a lot of people's stories, for better opportunities, but then you don't really lay hold of those opportunities, and you have to make do with something else. So those kind of things are things that are prevalent, but personally, kind of alien to me. But I was very empathetic, and I felt like I was going through some of those convoluted sort of emotions in my mind as well with him. There were many times that I wanted to give up, and I was willing him to just give up and just say, just start your own life and just give it up and go on. And at the end of the day, I'm glad he found some answer, but I'm still not satisfied with the answer, as which is light free.
It's not the answer anybody wanted, though.
Exactly. So I think they did touch on a whole lot of things, and I think going back to this, I'm jumping from one place to another. So I talked about his character, but I think the shots as well of the living conditions and all of that really brought it home for me to say, what are people leaving behind that they're going to live like this? How bad was it at home that you're having to live like this? And clearly it must be really bad at home. So it just really, you start to think about the whole socioeconomic impact or rationale or reasons for moving, and then you start going into, if Nigeria was good, we wouldn't be suffering like this, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it really did send me down that path as well. So I think for me, yes, I was going to say that in addition to the themes that you pointed out there were tiny bits and pieces of other things that I kind of picked up on. But Lola, the word that you used that I think encapsulates everything was haunting. I found it quite haunting. That's the way. I wish I thought about that word earlier. But yeah, that's the word I would use to summarize my feeling from watching this. Sorry, Tolu, you can say something.
No, my apologies. I was going to say that that Sao Paulo, in bits and pieces, just reminded me very much of Lagos. The way,
Yes.
I mean, especially when you were staying with, just I was like, this feels like Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like, this feels like Africa. And I was so, like, it felt so familiar in places. I was just like, wow, especially when he got to that shack. I'm like, this wouldn't feel out of place in a village in Nigeria somewhere.
Absolutely.
And it goes to your point, Ibiyemi, about like, really, what are you leaving behind to move forward to? I mean, he's basically done a 360, and it's even worse now because here he has no ties, here he has no connections. He's basically isolated in this place where, he has no connections, and his brother has now, comes to see him and, is bewildered, is confused, has no capacity to help him because they're both strangers in this, very foreign land, and they're both illegal. So yeah, I agree with you with
well, I don't know if they're both illegal. Are they illegal? I mean, he's a visitor, so I'm assuming he has a visitor's visa. That is Amadi. His brother, though.
But he was working there.
He was working. I mean,
well,
working for his uncles.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, I guess.
And not to spoil it but in the final scene, he says that he's going to look for his fortune, and he's trudging up into the sunset.
And I know. Yeah, well, so I know that we talked about. Tolu, I think you mentioned something about. You said you weren't satisfied with the ending, or you didn't find the end satisfying. For me, I did, at least for him, for that character. I mean, of course, for his brother, it was unfortunate. But I thought, okay, Amadi seemed to also come to an awareness while he was in São Paulo. I don't know if I can say the word, but and I don't know, and I feel like it's also an awareness that you have when you come out of Nigeria or when you travel to a new place, where you kind of discover new things about your own self and about the world. And it's just like, oh, with this new realization, I'm gonna go forward and see, how I can, I don't know, change my own life maybe. But I like that for him. I was hopeful for him that, okay. He just seemed a little more self-aware.
Yeah, self-awareness, yeah, I suppose, but to what end? And we mustn't count success solely by amassing wealth or having a good job or good income or economic prospects. But he didn't seem to have any economic prospects, which then just so there's a part of me that's thinking, well, if mental illness is something that perhaps they're prone to in the family, is he setting himself up for some sort of failure? Has the mother now lost 2 sons instead of 1? So that's why I was kind of like, oh, just go back home, man.
Well, I did think that. Yeah, I was like, well, in finding 1 son, you've now lost another, so you've now lost 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you think the significance of this line? And it's a line that was repeated throughout the film. That's from Things Fall Apart. And Eke the bird says that since men have learned to shoot without missing, he has learned to fly without perching. I kept thinking, what does that mean? And why is it kind of like a thread that runs throughout the film? Do you have any thoughts?
It's the hustle, innit?
Huh?
It's the hustle. That's what I thought. I just thought it was the hustle.
Okay.
Like,
adapting.
If the world throws this at me, I'm gonna have to adapt. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting though, because yeah, you're right. That was a thread right from beginning through to the end, and it was again quite haunting. But I think what was even more, was it worrying or scary or sad? I don't even know what the word is the fact that they had this conversation, or they came to this realization of this hustle that they must be about since they were kids. So for me, it's almost like innocence. The innocence of the child wasn't, that they should have had as children, wasn't that innocent, because they already had big dreams of things that they wanted to achieve, and they already knew that the odds are stacked up against them. And they're already thinking about things like the family, what's the word? The family curse, and how they're going to try and avoid that, and how they're going to try and beat that. So for me, it's almost like these are kids now. Like, the older brother had clearly carried that burden since when he was a child, and that definitely contributed to his mental breakdown. So again, for me, it was just like the kind of things that culture brings and sets us up for as children, and that we think, oh, it's just a story that children know. We don't know what impact it's having on their consciousness, on their personality, on their drive, on their fears, and what it can feed in the future. I mean, he could have fed something else where he could have become somebody great. Okay, because I don't want to fall into this trap, I'm going to become somebody great. So unfortunately, that's not what happened. So yeah, that was the impact of culture and what's the word I'm looking for? Superstition, or things like that on the mind of a child.
What did you think about the whole idea of Ikena being reincarnated in Amadi? I didn't understand. I was like, what is I kept thinking, what's the significance of that? Is it just storytelling, or was it supposed to be something deeper?
I think, to be honest with you, I when I was watching it, when I got to the end, I was like, a lot of the storytelling was like a red herring. I mean, they were touching on mysticism and talking on science fiction, but they were all red herrings. And I was wondering if, sometimes mental illness can lead us down strange paths of, trying to reason things out and trying to figure out the world as we know it. And, I think his older brother was telling him the story, I've been reincarnated in you, or and they have this, and it seems all mysterious. And it just, to me, I'll be like, there's something wrong with this person who's telling me that he's been reincarnated in me, and then how we can become our own parents, and, all sorts of, meandering down this path of, right, obviously he's leading you off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And we see all these signs and symbols of somebody descending into mental illness, and we want to blame spiritualism when we really should be taking them to Yaba Lift and, helping them and getting them the treatment and the care that they need to be able to, come out of this. And unfortunately, they're not, again, they don't have a support structure. Even in Nigeria, if they were at home, they may not even have the money to be able to get him good psychiatric care. So, yeah. I'm not sure it was anything meaningful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they could have also been talking about, you could also be prone to make the mistakes that your siblings have made. And there's that reasoning as well. But I didn't really. I thought, again, there was this mental illness sort of, thing that they were delicately touching on and, wrestling with the whole movie until they exploded at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think about the aspect ratio? And I know you guys are not filmmakers, but
was it
the box, the 4x3?
Okay, was it 4x3?
Yeah, it was 4x3, and so it made me feel like this was a film. Huh?
What's that?
I know the aspect ratio is the Tolu, what is it?
So your TV screen right now is probably 16:9. It's 16 inches long by 9 inches high. So that's 16:9. 4x3 is what your old TV used to be like.
The box, the square.
So it's squarish, but slightly rectangular box. And I thought it was good filmmaking because it gave you that retro feel. It didn't make the movie, it sort of closed you in. I think there was a lot of tight focus in this movie. He really focused on the characters' faces. He really focused on, and I thought this movie was gorgeously, it reminded me a lot of, you're right, Atlantics, that sort of very intimate movie where, you're really focusing on what is going on with this lead character, and the character is the one who's carrying the whole story along, and everybody else is really an ancillary. There is no leading lady. There's just one main character, and everybody's ancillary to the story. So I think that was beautifully done. I really enjoyed, the cinematography of the whole thing, and I really think that the set design, the wardrobe, even the way that I love the little details of, them and him, OC and his love interest communicating through Google Translate, because that is exactly what anybody would do these days. You know, if you're both unable to speak any common language. So yeah, I thought it was well done. I thought that 4-3 aspect was also a nice touch.
Oh, is it 4-3?
Made the movie more intimate.
Not 4-3.
It certainly made it more artsy fartsy for me, because I was like, why is it so dark and mysterious? Ooh.
No, it kept making me think that it was something that it was set back in the day, and it really was set last year. Yeah, so it confused me a little, because I think this was back in the day. And I'm like, no, wait, it's 2019. But let's go back to OC though. I just feel like he's an actor for his generation, and I don't think he gets his props, you know.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
And, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I saw him. I'm like, is this the same guy that was in Purple Hibiscus Flower in the Sky Sun or something? I'm like, how?
Royal Hibiscus.
What kind of insult? What insult to invite him to go? No, forgive me. I'd be facetious, but do you know what I mean? Like, he is a really, really talented actor. That's for sure. I mean, there's plain and simple. I think he was very talented. There's some people that there's a type of acting that we do in Nigeria, which we're talking about. It's very theatrical. Yeah.
Yes.
It's and I just thought this. Yeah, for the people in the gallery, you're trying to reach a project, but you didn't get that here at all. I mean, I just thought this is on a completely different level. I think I'm no expert, but I would say something along the lines of international standards. Having said that, I have seen, I'm digressing a little bit. What's her name? Wiruche Opia, in something that was done in Nigeria, when in the Nollywood thing, and I saw her in I May Destroy You, which is a BBC thing by what's her name? The girl that
Michaela Cohen.
Yeah.
Yes, Michaela Cohen. And again, I'm like, oh my goodness, night and day. So it might have something to do with directing, and even the way the film is shot. You know, because I'm like, okay, there are times that Wiruche isn't saying anything, but her look is conveying, and the way, the angles from which we're shot at, and even the duration of, the amount of time that the camera spends on the actor's face is enough to convey the emotion without saying, now show me you're angry. So it might have something to do with directing and the way it was filmed. And so maybe that's what we're missing in Nigeria, because this guy really, I thought, man, this guy is proper, like, international standards. Like I said, I'm gonna stop fawning over him now, but I thought he was really good.
I really enjoyed his performance. I want to say that it's really good. I struggled with his accent a little bit, because I'm not sure if he was supposed to be educated or non-educated, and if you guys remember, and I think they were trying to make this. I saw, for instance, the older brother had gotten into LSE, but they weren't able to afford it, so he couldn't go to school. But the older brother was brilliant, and he was, And I get the sense that they were supposed to be a really poor family, and I didn't feel that they were from Lagos, so his accent didn't suit where the character was supposed to be from, and his status.
Well,
but that's a tough one for me.
Hold on. Now, I don't know the East very well, but they lived in Nsukka. Nsukka is a university town.
Yeah.
Now, not having money in Nigeria, it's very different things. You can be academically rich and still not be able to afford LSE. You know what I mean? So Nsukka, I know it's a university town. However, I don't know if everybody's affiliated to the university. So I don't know.
But I mean, you have Igbo friends, and even if they go to university, if they've lived in the East for a lengthy amount of time, their accent is a particular way, and it's not, even when it's muted, it's still fairly strong. I mean, you can tell somebody who's from the East. And OC it wasn't stable. Because I could tell this is, I don't know, but I just, it felt put on for me just a little bit. And I could tell that, and I'm not familiar with his work, so it's not like I have tons of experience with him speaking Igbo I'm sure he's a fluent Igbo speaker. It just didn't feel like a natural, like Igbo tongue, and just that's just to me. But
are you saying it was a Lagosian accented Igbo? I don't understand.
No, it was too.
Well, are you talking about his Igbo or his English?
English, yeah. Which one?
English. His English.
Okay, his English.
His English was what, too polished or
posh? Yes, it was a little.
Right.
Even with the Igbo accent on top of it, it just didn't feel. So this guy, okay, look at Living in Bondage guy, dude. His accent, you could tell he is Igbo, and he's educated. OC sounds way more sophisticated than he does.
Really?
So like he doesn't have a thick Igbo accent. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it doesn't even necessarily have to be thick. It's just the cadence of his words, the words that he uses, the way. So like,
I hear you.
There's a way middle class English speakers. There's language middle class English speakers use. There's language that lower middle class, and language unfortunately has class and tone and whatever and whatnot. You see it in English when you have your Cockney versus Queen's English, whatever and whatnot. When you're from London, whatever. And his was just a little bit to me, a little bit too upper crust. Even though the accent was kind of supposed to be thick, but it wasn't really because it didn't stay too long. And I don't know.
I understand what you mean. It did sound like his spoken English was put on, like the Igbo accent was laid on a little thicker than normal. Like he was trying to convince you. Now for us, I feel like we'll get that. I feel like somebody who's not Nigerian would be completely fine. But I hear you on what you're saying. Again, I would say the character was supposed to have grown up in Nsukka. We don't know if his parents were lecturers or whatever. I don't know a ton about Nsukka, but I know it's a university town. So that could also explain that.
Just about his accent, not I disagree, but I don't agree, if that makes sense. It didn't call out to me as something that'd be like, but I thought his exclamations and the little jaras rang true for me. But I can only go by the Igbo friends that I have and the way they express exacerbation and the likes. And I thought he kind of nailed that.
I really like the quiet performance. I am tired of the hysterics. And Tolu, remember the last film we talked about, there was a particular character that you felt was played too hysterically. And I was like, I wanted to give that character to OC. I mean, he's a guy, so he's not going to get pregnant. He's not going to be diagnosed with that kind of cancer. But I would love to see how he would play that. Somebody who has received, a young person who has received the shock of their lives, and not being. Anyway. But yeah, it was a good film.
Again. So sorry. Again, I think it's probably down to directing.
Yeah.
It is that honestly that's what it is, because this was just a cut above anything that I'd seen him in before.
Yeah. No, I agree with you totally. I do think that we are doing Nigerian actors a disservice. I feel like they're not getting good enough.
Stretch their legs.
Yeah. I'm just like, are people giving people any direction? Is the actor just coming and doing what they think is the interpretation of the role? And are they getting any feedback on it? All right, so let's talk about the title, Shine Your Eyes. How did you feel?
So my pidgin / Nigerian English thingy is not the best. Lexicon, sorry, is not the best. But I'm assuming Shine Your Eyes is like, I don't know, it's a Nigerian version of like, be vigilant. Am I right?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but to me, I love the phrase simply because, it's like, keep your eyes open and pay attention. But it's a good question, because is it pay attention to family, pay attention to the mental health of your family members, pay attention to your family dynamics. I'm not quite sure what it had to do with the story of the film, but the term itself I like, because it's a very, very Nigerian term, and it reminds me of when somebody's driving past and their car lights flash in your eyes, and you're literally like, shine your eyes, make your eyes shine. So anyways, What do you guys think?
What's his name? Ikenna did say it at the end.
Yes.
When he was talking to his brother. So he was saying something along the lines of, it's you're right. It's be aware of what's going on around you. And I think the point he was trying to make was, I've cracked the code. Now I want you to be aware of what's going on around you. And it's just weird, not weird, but it's sad because he didn't crack any code clearly. But conversely or ironically, even though he didn't crack the code and he thought he had, and he was telling his brother to shine his eye, his brother's eyes were now open to the fact that actually,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
You know what? All is not well here. This is not going down the way we planned it, and I better wake up and smell the coffee, which is probably the English equivalent to shine your eye.
Wake up and smell the coffee, yes. But also, you're right in the sense that Amadi like came to a realization, right? That, look, all of this, wishing for my mother's attention and wishing to be like, to be seen, like, look, dude, it's not all of this stress. I can strike out on my own and do what I want. And he basically, it was like he almost felt like he tossed that cell phone away and struck out on his own, to really see what the world was like without all those, all that weight on his shoulders of trying to live up to an ideal of being the spare, so to speak, when it comes to the heir and the spare. So
yeah,
I love that. And just quickly, who says to their son, like, your dimple, so he talked about, asking his mother how he had the cleft in the chin, the dimple in the chin, right? And, she says the ones that are in the cheeks are from God saying, hey, and then the one here is for him to then go, I was like, who says that to their son?
Casual, Africans, we excel in casual cruelty to kids, I have to say.
Yeah. We do. We do. And I even as a parent, I find myself doing it. You wonder, I hope they realize that's kind of a joke, but then was it a joke? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like for example, when my girls eat, for example, and my wife says, look at your tummy, I'm like, stop telling them, look at your tummy. But it's the thing that we say, look at your tummy, you'll soon explode. But actually, these are things that actually cause potentially cause body image issues and all of that in the future. But so you never know. You never know what. It's the same thing. They say, "Oh, you're so short." When God was handing out height, you went to swim in the river. It's things like that. It's like you said. It's casual cruelty, or how did you say it?
Casual cruelty. Yeah.
But I think there's still a difference between saying "see your tummy" and telling the story about being like you're one of God's rejected.
No, but the thing is, it's because of the way he's recounting it now. He's recounting it but when she would have said it, it probably was, it wasn't 3x4 dark lit or dark filmed. It was probably like outside when they were, come back from the market or something in a jocular fashion. It wasn't moody or broody like he would have recounted it as well.
True.
But I think one of the things that I found also quite sad and haunting was in line with the same thing was the message that he kept on listening to. You're my heart, you're my this, when she asked him, Amadi, to leave the room. And that was a recording that he kept on listening to.
Well, or attempting to listen to and not being able
attempting to listen to. Yeah, exactly. But, and that's just reinforcing the fact that I'm second best, right? Or maybe even third best, who knows. Basically, I'm not the best. And he just kept, having that recording is one thing to remember it. It's another thing to actually have the recording and be playing it back to yourself over and over again. And especially in this age of, where technology sort of, keeps things forever and ever in text messages and whatnot. I think it's just, perhaps for me, it reinforces the good behavior that we should have, that you should just be careful about what you say to people. Because you just never know how it's eating away at them day after day after day. I think the title should have been Beautiful Boy. Or something along
I
those
know,
lines.
right? They said that a couple of times, and I was like, "What is this beautiful boy thing?" But yeah,
he's my beautiful boy, but he's not enough. my beautiful boy, but not enough, basically.
That butt is a killer. That butt is such a killer
man.
because it's that's not awesome at all. It's not great. Watch it.
A good movie, you should see it.
Yes, watch it.
It's a bit of a slow burn as well. But just get into it, Maybe on a Friday night, instead of going out, just get a glass of wine, some popcorn, watch it.
Is anyone going out Friday nights?
My dear, it's true. These days of
All
COVID.
right. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us on this episode. We just talked about Shine Your Eyes, starring OC Ukeje. Go see it. It's on Netflix. Peace.